Hampshire, a rural, affluent county. Famous for its lush green fields and calm coastal areas, it is also England's fifth most populated county and home to over 1.8 million people, some of which have included musicians such as Craig David, Birdie and Frank Turner. But how many other famous acts have you heard of from Hants? It's easy to pinpoint the Beatles as Liverpudlian lads, or the trip-hop beats of Bristol, with 90s bands such as Massive Attack and Portishead. But why is there no distinct sound coming out of Hampshire's cities? Cities such as Southampton, Portsmouth and Winchester don't seem to have an individual sound, with many local artists performing across their native county and working together. So in this case, it can often be assessed as a whole. Armed with a booming double bass rather than a guitar, is the more controversial character of the Hampshire music scene. Performing in living rooms and venues for 20 years, Grant Sharkey receives hurrahs and heckles from crowds across the country. This is due to his political music. His song, titled Spoons, is about his issues with the pub chain Wetherspoon. Since its release, he has confronted the target of his song, Wetherspoon's boss Tim Martin, and making local news in the process. Being a Southampton lad, Grant says his city background has influenced his music. But why isn't there more political music in the area? He is considered controversial and different when amongst his peers of folk or indie pop musicians.
I've been doing it for over 20 years, I think, the music thing. So Southampton music scene especially has been amazing. We've had bands like Stout and Rival Jousters and Science of Aliens, but so many great bands that have all been really original. Outside of Southampton in Hampshire, it's really good. I think it's a bit more pastoral as you get sort of further north. I think there's a bit more sort of folk and stuff like that, and it's quite hard to find sort of bombastic sort of bands. There's a lot more beauty out there, but in Southampton itself it seems to be quite rugged and jagged and a bit more abrasive, I suppose, and that's where I come from myself. So when I go the rest of the country and I play with 5 folk singers, and I go up there with a double bass and swear, they go blimey, what's that? And it's quite nice. It's the bit I thrive on. It's the bit I focus on. I try never to be a cliche.
A reason why there is no distinct sound in the Hampshire scene is the amount of venues. Hampshire and the places within it have a variety of venues that cater to different sounds, meaning different groups go to different places. You'll find plenty of folk in Winchester, but in the industrious sounds of Southampton you'll get rock. Even Southampton itself has its little groups. The Joiners is where you'll find the heavy rock, but at a vegan cafe like the Art House, this is less likely. Indie musician Eliza explains the occurrence of these different groups as a Venn diagram, with groups of artists collecting together where their genre is played the most.
I think of Southampton like a Venn diagram, but it's just got like multiple circles that are all interlinking, and different artists. Some people might never meet but are aware of each other, so they're opposite circles on the diagram, and some people cross over in the middle. There are some people who, like Grant Sharkey, are really political and they roll in those circles. Not that he's not like earthy, but I mean there are some people that are more on the kind of respect the earth level, people that work with like the Art House or Food Not Bombs, that kind of thing, and they're their own kind of little group, or environmental rock that happens at the Hobbit, and they're their own sort of not clique but collection. I don't know what I am.
Has it always been like this? Many musicians would like to think their sound will be the next big thing in terms of chart music, but even locally what genres people listen to in popular music is still very varied. From 2000 to 2015 there was a lot of DIY scenes in Winchester in reaction to the popular music genres typically found in Southampton. These included dance and rock. Promoter Ian Roberts still thinks these acts from back in the day carry on this sound.
The scene as it was at the beginning of the century There's still remnants of it, but lots of it moved away to Bath or to Bristol, to London or out of the country. But there's still elements of it going. The thing about Winchester is that if you're a musician with ambition, you're going to very quickly want to move to Bristol or Bath or London. And so it does make building a scene in Winchester a little bit difficult.
Venues also have the vital issue of staying open. If one venue is like another, why should both stay open? With the closure of Southampton's The Talking Heads last year and Portsmouth's The Cellars in Eastney 3 years ago, closures mean that musicians and groups of genres are forced to move around venues or find somewhere else that fits their style. Many musicians of quite a variety have played at The Talking Heads, which has now been replaced by the 1865. It is self-described as Southampton's most eclectic music venue until 2018. And although these acts have since moved on, they still remember it fondly, such as young folk musician Leon Chatterton.
The Talking Heads was a big one for me. I played some of my first gigs, the sort of more than 15 minutes there, and in the main room and the Maple Leaf Lounge. And the Maple Leaf Lounge turned out to be one of the most beautiful rooms that we have. I also found that the Art House Cafe, where we are right now, is an absolute gorgeous place to come and play, and it's always very intimate. The crowd's right in front of you. And another one is Heartbreakers, which is a new one that was opened quite recently. That's upstairs, down by it's in the upstairs bit, and it's just another gorgeous place, really really intimate location, because Southampton has a lot of small venues that are really great, but not many big ones.
Venues with a certain audience stay open, with no sound dominating over the other. Adding to this issue of different venues is the influx of young musicians who separate into groups of similar sounding artists. This typically happens at open mic nights across the county that focus on more acoustic guitar-based singer-songwriter music, which can often attract the same faces. Country musician Eric Walker often goes to these events in the hopes to discover new artists, some of which he has nurtured.
I must admit, I love inspiring others, and one of the things I like doing is also, as alongside doing gigs, is I often go to open mics and see other up-and-coming artists, because you can learn so much from other people, and they can learn so much from you as well. One other musician, Leon C, I've had the chance to see him really grow and develop over his time, and I first met Leon at his second ever open mic, and from there I actually helped him get his first ever gig. So I quite like that side of inspiring others, or kind of assisting others and providing them advice on the things that I've had to do as well, because it can be quite scary out there when you're starting out as a musician.
The last and possibly biggest problem are the clutches of the other counties and cities. Musicians in the Hampshire music scene tend to be locals or have moved there for reasons such as university or work. But the ones perceived to have more ambition move to London or other areas where there is a bigger scene and distinct sound. Kitty O'Neill bases herself in Southampton and London to make herself known across a wider area.
And I think that's the main reason why people do move on, just because in London you've got like 10 times the amount of things going on, and that doesn't make it better, because it's all about the quality really, but I think people do just move on because this can feel quite small. I would say that there is a slight bigger jazz scene here than other genres. I have noticed there's the majority of gigs, I think, are maybe jazz and like jazz nights and stuff like that, and jams. That's the vibe I got when I first moved here anyway. I don't know why there's not a dominating one. Just, I think because of the two universities, students tend to be into all sorts of things, and there's quite a lot of students just doing a bit of everything really.
So what are the solutions to this problem? Will we ever get a new indie rock explosion from Hampshire? Most likely not. Neither more likely is the next big dance scene or a country scene to rival the one of Tennessee. Groups of artists in Hampshire are created through similar styles of music or what venues they play. From this, a community across the county can be considered very closely knit in its own little subsections. But there are events other than open mic nights, in which they all support each other and meet, and create bigger groups. A venue which has hosted many acts over the years, including one such as Frank Turner, is the Railway Inn. At risk of closure last year, it still hosts a multitude of new musicians at an event called Fap with Friends in the Attic. From Kat to Grant to Eric and Leon, a selection box of local sounds has played here. It is curated by Winchester-based band Fly Away Peter.
The idea originally was that we were going to do like a round robin sort of thing, so someone would play one song and we'd keep moving it round. And what we tried to do here a little bit was give people the chance to play, but without necessarily going up on stage. We've kind of moved away from that a little bit because people seem to be quite comfortable going up there. But what we do is we don't tell people what time they're playing until the day, and we have a guest artist, but we don't call them a headliner, and they're a guest because they get a little bit longer to play, and we pass a hat round for them. The idea of not telling people what time they're playing, so it's kind of got an open mic sort of feel, but also having a guest that can play 2 lots of 15 minutes at any point, is so that people stay and stick around. And what we found that people did, and they wanted to. It made it more of an afternoon, so everyone would stay and support each other. But
that is one of the worst things about live music scene. Is some bands, they just go play their set and then leave and don't watch any of the other bands. And well, I've always hated that aspect of the music scene, but so we've managed to somehow avoid that.
In Southampton, local musician David Cromwell says a similar event at the John Hansard Gallery has occurred.
Talking Heads is a venue that recently closed down, which is very sad, and it's a story that's been repeated all over the country, that it's very difficult for live venues to survive in a difficult environment, different economic environment. But Southampton is pretty healthy despite the closure of Talking Heads. You still got the likes of the Joiners, and where we are now, the Art House, and you've got the Brook, and you've got the Platform Tavern. And another new venture to do with that is called the Gallery Sessions, which is run by Kat Tarrant, who's a local singer, songwriter, musician. She works as a guide.
So what about the Fame fiasco? How should bands make it big when living in such a rural area? Although it's only a train's ride away from London, local resources are the easiest to use to get your sound spread across the county, and radio is one of them for rock band Minus Alive.
I think radio, stuff like radio is really good. Local radio, brings back the whole community thing. It's very important, I think, to support a community, and there are regular listeners that will listen in and go, cool, this is sort of the Southampton scene. These are the artists that make the Southampton music scene happen, and I think it's nice for them all to be in one sort of place, because I might go out and listen to loads of different bands on one night and I've never heard of them, but they're all from the city. You know what I mean? There's a lot of music going on here, and to have it all in one place, like on a radio station or something like that, is brilliant.
The key way to solve this issue of fame and creating a known Hampshire sound is by touring across the country, even the county if you're not yet within the inner circles. Playing in different counties can lead to different responses and different fans. The Asylum, Broadcast and Voice FM, have also discussed this solution.
In Southampton, and Pompey has a strong music scene, but I think, and I keep on saying this, Pompey bands play outside of Pompey. You've got great talent there. There's bands that have that extra edge because they're from Hampshire, so we have very difficult audiences to play for, and our audiences are great. And I'm not saying I hate our audience in Southampton. They're our home audience. They're fantastic and they're great fun, but they have made us what we are. So Pompey people, get out there and play in other places. Play around in different counties. Do it. You will find yourselves masters of the world around you, because no one else has to put up with the stuff you have to put up with.
With more answers comes even more questions. What is the future direction of this scene? Will Grant continue to play living rooms across the country in 20 years' time? For now, he continues to be controversial. His new album, Man School, hasn't made it to Spotify due to its themes, but is selling albums online, as well as using sites like Bandcamp. He could give musicians around him different ideas about how to promote themselves. Leon, who was seen as the new young musician in the scene, is now supporting the careers of younger artists. What will these musicians sound like, and will they promote similar sounds as their predecessors? Kitty O'Neill has changed her name to March and will be moving to London. She is also playing Glastonbury 2019. What success will she find in London with a larger amount of venues to play? Fly Away Peter are on hiatus, but will continue as a band again soon, while focusing on Fap with Friends in the Attic. Will this bring any new talent and continue to encourage a less competitive music scene for the musicians that Hampshire has?